The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchok Schneerson, suffered tremendous pain and was put in prison by the communist Russians for his crime of spreading Yiddishkeit in Russia. When he came out of prison and he was released and he went to America, he once remarked and said the following. He said, if somebody would pay me $1 billion to buy what I went through, I would never sell. Yet if somebody offers me today $1 billion to go through the same thing again, I wouldn't agree to accept. Which obviously leaves us wondering, if it was really worth it, why wouldn't he do it again? And if it's not worth this amount of money, then why wouldn't he sell that experience? Perhaps the answer can be found in this week's parasha. When the Torah tells us in Parashat Vayigash that Yosef and his brothers finally meet, and Yosef introduces himself to his brothers, he says, Ani Yosef ha'od avichai. I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? Says the Torah, V'lo yachlu echav la'anot oto ki nivhalu mipanav. His brothers couldn't respond because they were in utter shock. They were scared. They couldn't believe what they're seeing. So Yosef repeats and he says, Gishuna Vayigashu, come to me. I want to tell you something. Ani Yosef achichem Hashem mechartem uti mitzrayma. I am Yosef, your brother, that you sent me down to, you sold me down to Egypt. But what doesn't make sense is two things. If Yosef is trying to comfort his brothers, he sees that they're scared. So why does he remind them that they sold him down to Egypt? That's not something that would be soothing or comforting to them. And number two, why does he repeat again, I am Yosef, your brother? He's already told them once that he is Yosef. So our rabbis explain that it's actually much deeper. When Yosef reveals himself to his brothers, he doesn't just reveal his identity, but rather he allowed them a peek into who Yosef really was. He showed them how spiritual he was, how righteous he was, and what a lofty soul he had, and how holy he was, even being down in Egypt. His brothers were shocked. They couldn't believe this. They thought to themselves, look, even in Egypt, Yosef reached such great spiritual heights. Imagine, had Yosef stayed in Israel all the time together with his father, he would have probably been even in a higher level. So Yosef comforts them. He says, come, let me explain. He says, I am your brother Yosef that you sold to Egypt. He wasn't just telling them the facts, but rather he was saying because. The word in Hebrew, asher, can mean that, but it can also mean because. And he was saying, because you sold me to Egypt, that is why I have reached my high levels. Yes, perhaps I would have stayed in Israel, I would have been okay, I would have been spiritual, but I would have never reached these high levels. Staying in a cocoon in the spirituality of my father would have been great. But because I was challenged, because I had to find the energy from within to overcome all the trials and tribulations which I did, this is what put me on this pedestal and allowed me to be the spiritual and the holy person I am. And that is what the previous Chabad Rebbe was actually saying. We as Jews never want to go through trials and tribulations. We don't look for tzuras, but if we do, at least let's see how we can grow from it and not give up the experience for any money in the world. And therefore it's such a powerful message for each and every one of us. We all have this part where we get sold to Egypt. We all have this part where our brothers and sisters may betray us, or we feel that we have tzuras, we feel that we have mitzrayim, which means confines, limitations, borders. But let's understand that this is for our growth. We can only achieve the heights, the spiritual heights that we want to be there through these tribulations. So let's not dismiss them, but rather learn from Yosef and understand that it's these problems, these temptations and tribulations and trials and hardships that can bring us to the greatest heights. Wishing you Shabbat Shalom.